I never thought I would be homeless at 32, especially by my own parents' hands. After losing my tech job in Boston, I reluctantly moved back home, just until I got back on my feet. 3 months in, without warning, Dad tossed my belongings onto the lawn, while Mom watched silently from the window. That betrayal crushed me, but what they did not know, I had just received my severance package. Their cruelty awakened something in me I never knew existed. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that subscribe button if family drama gets your blood pumping. For 8 years, I had built my life as a software developer in Boston. I specialized in financial technology, earning a 6-figure salary that allowed me to purchase a luxury condo in one of the city's most desirable neighborhoods. Life was good, and I had established myself as one of the rising stars at my company. My parents, Harold and Marcia, were always proud to tell their friends about their successful son who worked in computers, though they never quite understood what I actually did. I had always been the reliable son who sent money home regularly. Every month without fail, I would transfer $500 into their account, sometimes more during holidays or when they mentioned unexpected expenses. It was never a burden. I made good money and wanted to help the people who raised me. Looking back, I realize now how that regular income might have become something they depended on more than I knew. The layoff came without warning. Our entire department was cut during a major tech downsizing that made national news. 28 of us were called into the conference room on a Tuesday morning in March. The CEO spoke about market conditions and restructuring needs, but all I heard was that my career at the company was over. The HR representative assured us about a generous severance package. 1 month of salary for every year of service plus extended health benefits. For me, that meant 8 months of financial cushion. The severance package will be processed within 30 days, she said, handing me a folder of paperwork. In the meantime, here is information about unemployment benefits. That 30 days stretched into 60, then 90, as the company faced administrative delays due to their own financial struggles. My savings began to dwindle as I maintained my expensive Boston lifestyle while searching for new positions. The job market had suddenly become flooded with qualified tech workers, all competing for drastically fewer openings. When my landlord informed me they would be raising my rent by 20% at renewal, I knew I needed to make a difficult decision. After calculating my remaining funds against my monthly expenses, the math was clear. I needed to drastically cut my living costs until my severance came through. That is when I called my parents. "Of course you can come. Stay with us, Apollo," my mother said warmly over the phone. "The house feels too empty with just your father and me. We would love having you back for a while." My father got on the line next. 6 months should be plenty of time for someone with your skills to find something new. Our door is always open to you, son. I packed what I could fit in my car, put the rest in storage, and made the 3-hour drive from Boston to my childhood home in Connecticut. The 2-story colonial, with blue shutters, looked exactly as it had when I left for college 14 years ago. When I pulled into the driveway, both my parents came outside to greet me with hugs and offers to help carry my belongings. "We kept your old room exactly the same," my mother said, leading me upstairs. The twin bed with its faded baseball comforter looked comically small now, but seeing the shelf with my high school trophies and the MIT acceptance letter still framed on the wall brought a rush of warm memories. Those first weeks back home were surprisingly pleasant. I helped with house repairs my father had neglected, fixing the leaky faucet in the bathroom, replacing the broken porch step and patching holes in the drywall. My mother seemed delighted when I cooked meals she loved using recipes I had learned during my time in Boston. We would sit together in the evenings reminiscing about my childhood, while I searched for jobs on my laptop. Remember when Apollo won that science fair in 7th grade, my father would say, his eyes crinkling with pride. The judges could not believe a 12-year-old built that robot by himself. I attended several promising job interviews in the area, and while nothing had materialized yet, I felt optimistic about my prospects. Being back in my childhood home gave me an unexpected sense of security during this period of uncertainty. I was grateful to have parents who supported me through this rough patch, or so I thought. By the 6-week mark, subtle changes began appearing in my parents' behavior. It started with small comments during dinner, like when I reached for seconds of the lasagna I had made. Groceries sure disappear fast these days, my father remarked, watching my plate. Food costs have gone through the roof. When I offered to contribute to groceries from my dwindling savings, he waved it off, but the damage was done. I began keeping track of exactly what I ate, making smaller portions for myself. My mother, once warm and engaging, became increasingly distant. Our conversations grew shorter, her responses curt. "Are you still looking for jobs?" she would ask, not looking up from her phone. When I described my interviews and applications, she would merely nod without comment. One afternoon, while searching for stamps in the desk drawer, I discovered several of my opened mail pieces tucked underneath some papers. Bank statements, correspondence from my former employer about the severance package, even personal letters. All had been carefully opened and resealed. The invasion of privacy stung, but what hurt more was the realization they were monitoring my finances. Around the 2-month mark, I began noticing expensive cars visiting the house when I was supposedly out. The first time I had returned early from a job interview that ended sooner than expected. A black Mercedes was in our driveway, but when I entered the house, my parents seemed startled, and the visitor was quickly ushered out the back door. "Who was that?" I asked casually over dinner that night. "Just an old friend from church," my mother replied, exchanging a look with my father. These mysterious visits continued. Twice more I came home to find unfamiliar vehicles in our driveway, only to have them leave hurriedly upon my arrival. My suspicions grew when I overheard fragments of hushed conversations about property values and development potential. One rainy afternoon, I returned home and parked down the street when I recognized the black Mercedes again. Through the living room window, I could see my father animatedly discussing something with a well-dressed man. They were hunched over papers spread across the coffee table. I waited in my car for almost an hour, until the visitor left, then waited another 20 minutes before entering the house, as if I had just arrived. That night, unable to sleep, I crept downstairs and found the papers they had forgotten to put away, preliminary sketches for converting our property into luxury apartments. The visitor had been Jackson Wright, a notorious local real estate developer known for buying out family homes to build overpriced condominiums. My childhood home had apparently caught his interest. The next morning, I confronted my parents directly. "Why is Jackson Wright visiting? Are you planning to sell the house?" My father spluttered on his coffee. "We are just exploring options for retirement. Nothing concrete." "Retirement? But you always said you wanted to age in place here." My mother placed her hand on mine in that condescending way she used when she thought I was being irrational. "Apollo, honey, you seem stressed. Job hunting can make people paranoid." "I am not paranoid. I saw the plans for luxury apartments. You were snooping through our papers." My father stood up, his face reddening. "This is still our house, and what we do with it is our business." The conversation ended with tense silence. But later that day, I received wonderful news. My severance package had finally been approved. 8 months of salary would be deposited in my account within 3 business days, a total of $175,000 after taxes. When I shared this news at dinner, hoping it might ease tensions, I caught my parents exchanging meaningful glances. "That is wonderful, dear," my mother said, with sudden warmth. "We always knew things would work out for you." Despite her renewed friendliness, things around the house worsened dramatically over the next week. I returned from a morning run to find my bedroom door would no longer lock. My father claimed the old mechanism had simply broken, but when I offered to replace it myself, he refused, saying it was not necessary. Personal items began disappearing. First my expensive wireless headphones, then my backup external hard drive. When confronted, both parents suggested I had misplaced them. My laptop mysteriously crashed twice during critical video interviews, and I discovered the internet router had been unplugged both times. Then I found my mother had been calling family members, telling them I had become unstable after losing my job and they were concerned about my mental state. My aunt called to check on me, repeating these claims, horrified when I explained what was really happening. "They have been having money problems for years," she confided. "Your father lost a bundle in some investment scheme. Maybe they see your severance as a way out of their mess." The final betrayal came exactly 3 months after I had moved back home. I had just returned from my most promising interview yet, a senior developer position at a financial startup with an even higher salary than my previous job. As I turned onto our street, I saw my belongings scattered across the front lawn. Clothes, books, computer equipment, everything had been removed from my room and dumped unceremoniously outside. My father stood on the porch, arms crossed, while my mother watched from behind the living room curtain. I parked on the street and approached with my heart hammering in my chest. "What is going on?" "You have until sundown to clear your stuff," my father stated coldly. "We need the room back." "What are you talking about? We agreed on 6 months. It has only been 3. Plans change. We have a paying tenant moving in tomorrow. A few neighbors had come out to witness the commotion. Some pretended to work in their yards while stealing glances. Others did not even try to hide their curiosity, one even filming with her phone. The humiliation burned through me as I realized this had been planned. They had waited until I was gone to put my life out on display for the entire neighborhood to see. As I frantically gathered my belongings, I discovered many items were missing or damaged. My collection of rare programming books had water damage. My framed diplomas had shattered glass. When I went to the backyard to retrieve my mountain bike, I found it had fallen against the shed, the frame now bent and unusable. "Who is the tenant?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice level as I loaded my car. "Jackson Wright has a nephew who needs a place to stay," my mother finally said, coming onto the porch. "He is paying twice what this room is worth." They had sold my sanctuary to the very developer who wanted to tear down our family home. The irony would have been laughable if it were not so painful. With my car packed to capacity with what I could salvage, I was forced to leave many possessions behind. That night, I slept in my car in the Walmart parking lot, unable to afford a hotel while waiting for my severance to process. The temperature dropped to 40 degrees and I shivered under my jacket, using my gym bag as a pillow. 2 days later, still living out of my car, I received the email that changed everything. Severance payment confirmation. $175,000 has been deposited to your account. Almost simultaneously, my phone rang with news from the financial startup. They wanted to offer me the position with a starting salary 20% higher than my previous job. That same evening, I ran into Marcus Williams at the local coffee shop where I had been using the free Wi-Fi. We had been best friends throughout high school, before drifting apart during college. He had become a successful real estate agent in our hometown. "Apollo, man, I heard what happened with your parents. The neighborhood is talking." Marcus shook his head sympathetically. "That is seriously messed up." Over the next hour, I learned something that shifted everything. My parents were not just opportunistically renting my room, they were in serious financial trouble. Marcus had access to property records through his work and revealed they had defaulted on their mortgage 3 times in the past 2 years. The bank had given them one final chance to catch up on payments. "They are facing foreclosure," Marcus explained. "The bank has been keeping it quiet, but they are putting the house up for confidential auction next month if your parents miss another payment." He paused, studying my expression. "And from what I know about your father gambling habits and your mother medical bills, they are definitely missing that payment." Something clicked in my mind. A plan so perfect in its poetic justice that I could hardly believe it was possible. "Marcus, how exactly does a confidential auction work?" Over the next week, Marcus and I formed a strategic partnership. I created a shell company called Phoenix Holdings to hide my identity. Marcus researched the property value, confirming the house was worth substantially more than the outstanding mortgage. With his knowledge of the bidding process and my newly acquired financial resources, we prepared to acquire my childhood home. The day of the auction arrived. 3 other bidders participated remotely, but none matched my emotional investment in the property. When the final gavel fell, Phoenix Holdings had purchased the house for 30% below market value, still allowing the bank to recover their loan, while netting me a property worth far more than I paid. For 3 weeks, I let my parents continue their lives unaware. I rented a small apartment nearby, started my new job remotely, and worked with a real estate attorney to prepare the next phase of my plan. The documents were drafted with meticulous care, the timing calculated for maximum impact. Then came the day of revelation. My lawyer delivered the new lease agreement to my parents, with rent tripled from their former mortgage payment. The documents made it clear they were now tenants with 30 days to either sign the new terms or vacate the premises. Their frantic calls to the bank went nowhere. The property had been legally sold. The matter was closed. I waited until evening before driving to the house in my new car. When I pulled into the driveway, both parents rushed outside, waving the papers. There must be some mistake. My father began, then froze when he recognized me. "Apollo, what are you doing here? I believe you received some documents today," I said calmly, stepping out of the car. My mother clutched the lease agreement. You are Phoenix Holdings' surprise." I smiled without warmth. Landlord checking in on his new property. The color drained from their faces as understanding dawned. My father stumbled backward as if physically struck. My mother began to cry, mascara tracking down her cheeks. "You cannot do this," my father sputtered. "We are your parents, and you threw your son onto the street without warning," I replied. "Now you have a choice: triple rent or 30 days to leave." Business is business, right? The satisfaction of that moment was real, but surprisingly short-lived. In the following days, my parents called, constantly alternating between anger, pleading, and explanations. They claimed financial desperation had driven their actions. My father gambling debts from trying to recover investment losses. My mother hidden medical bills from procedures she had been too ashamed to discuss. "We thought we would lose the house anyway," my mother sobbed during one call. "When Jackson offered money for your room, we saw it as our only way to make the mortgage payment." I maintained a cool distance, but found myself increasingly uncomfortable with their suffering. When I drove by the house and saw my father sitting on the porch steps, head in his hands, looking 10 years older than the last time I had seen him, something shifted inside me. 2 weeks after revealing myself as their landlord, I met my childhood mentor, Mr. Grayson, for coffee. He had been my high school computer science teacher, who first encouraged me to apply to MIT. Now retired, he still lived in the neighborhood and had heard about the situation. "I am not saying what they did was right," he said carefully. "But revenge is a dangerous game, Apollo. It changes the person who seeks it as much as those who receive it. They betrayed me," I insisted. "They deserve consequences." "Of course they do," he agreed. "But ask yourself, in making them suffer, are you becoming what you despised in them? Are you allowing their worst actions to determine your character?" That question haunted me for days. When I learned my father had been hospitalized with chest pains from stress, I realized I stood at a crucial crossroads. The path of continued vengeance promised hollow victory. The alternative required strength of a different kind. After much reflection, I drafted a new lease agreement, one with fair market rent rather than the punitive amount I had initially demanded. I created a payment plan that acknowledged their financial situation while still respecting myself. Most importantly, I established firm boundaries and communication rules for our relationship going forward. When I presented these terms, my parents were stunned into silence. "Why would you do this after what we did to you?" my father finally asked. "Because I refuse to become the kind of person who values money over family," I replied. "That does not mean I forgive what happened. It means I choose a different path forward." Over the following months, our relationship entered a healing process that required work from all sides. My parents demonstrated genuine remorse through actions rather than words. They respected my boundaries, attended financial counseling, and my father joined a support group for his gambling addiction. I used the remainder of my severance to start a small tech company focused on financial education apps. The irony was not lost on me, creating tools to help others avoid the money mistakes that had fractured my own family. Looking back now, I understand how financial insecurity can reveal the darkest aspects of character. Money problems had exposed my parents' flaws, just as their betrayal had revealed my capacity for vengeful thinking. The true test of character, though, lies not in avoiding these revelations, but in what we choose to do after them. Family bonds require commitment from everyone involved. Self-respect does not demand punishing others, but it does require setting healthy boundaries. Perhaps most importantly, I learned that breaking cycles of toxic behavior demands more courage than perpetuating them. Today, as I drive away from what is now legally my house, where my parents live as tenants with clear agreements between us, I feel a sense of peace that revenge could never provide. I am building something new from the broken foundation of our past relationship. Not perfect, but authentic and honest. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family? What would you have done in my situation? Let me know in the comments below. If this story of family drama and redemption resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and share with someone who might need to hear it. Thanks for listening to my journey. And remember, sometimes the best revenge is refusing to let someone else's poor choices dictate your own character. Until next time.